Start something new. Maybe we'll be able to learn the Maimon. This is a famous Maimon known as V'yodaita Moska, one of the fundamental Maimorim from Rebbe Rashab. V'yodaita HaYom v'ashiveis al vavecha. So the Pasuk says, you should know HaYom, this day, meaning as clear as the day, v'ashiveis al vavecha, and then reflect back to your heart, ki Havaya hu Elokim. That Havaya, he is hu Elokim, he is the Elokim. So this all is going to be explained. What is Havaya and what is hu Elokim and what is mean Havaya hu Elokim. V'hine ha-psukim shekoidem lozeh, the psukim before this, medabri me'inyan yitzias Mitzrayim, the psukim previous to that speak about Yitzias Mitzrayim, uknisas ha'oretz. Knisas ha'oretz, entering the land. And then it says, V'yodaita HaYom. In other words, as a result of Yitzias Mitzrayim and entering into Eretz Yisrael, you will know this inyan Havaya hu Elokim. Tzorich lehovin. So now we need to understand Shaychus inyan Yitzias Mitzrayim, uknisas ha'oretz. V'yodaita. The relationship, the connection of Yitzias Mitzrayim and Knisas Ha'oretz, how is that related to connected to V'yodaita, that you should know Havaya hu Elokim. We just started something, the new Maimon, this V'yodaita. Huh? Rebbe Rashab. The early Maimon for Rebbe Rashab. Okay, we're at the end of the third line. The Pasuk seems to be saying that there is some kind of a connection between Yitzias Mitzrayim and coming out of Mitzrayim and going to Israel, and it's connected to recognition, to recognize the inyan Havaya hu Elokim, and the Rebbe is asking, what is the connection? V'yesh lahavin tchila, but to do that, we first need to understand Masha Kosuv. What does the Pasuk say when it says ki Havaya hu Elokim? We have to understand what the Pasuk is saying about this inyan Havaya hu Elokim. V'yodua Masha Kosuv al zeh b'zoyha. We know what the Zohar says regarding this. And basically what the Zohar says is that the Pasuk is teaching us that we should know the Havaya v'Elokim kula chad. That Havaya and Elokim, this is all one thing. One. Seemingly, apparently, superficially at least, this is not readily understandable. How are they all one thing? Havaya and Elokim. And now we'll discuss the inyan from Havaya and Elokim and see that in fact they're very different things. It is known the Havaya hu moker hagilui. Before we go on, I just want to give us a perspective. Havaya and Elokim and Shakai and Kale, all kinds of names, and there are 7 primary names that Hashem is called by, and then secondary names. The whole idea of calling Hashem by a name is describing Hashem's effect on in the creation, how Hashem reveals Himself. It's not referring to Hashem Himself. Why is it not referring to Hashem Himself? This is a primary understanding that we have to have.
Refers to Eberster,
Huh?
Refers to Eberster and the Metzius of Eberster, but from our perspective.
I'll explain in a minute. Okay. First of all, why is a name cannot be referring to us? It's not a name of the Hashem. There's a famous saying from the Rebbe Rashab, where the Rebbe said, in these days, there were a lot of the Apikursim Rahman al-Islam, let's say, Nisan. Every generation had its own plague of, people like that. And in his days, they were very active, very forceful. And in the Lubavitch, there were wars with the Nisan. I don't know if you're familiar. They did a lot of service in the yeshiva. So the Rebbe Rashab said one time, he said, these Apikursim, he says, I agree with them. Because the God that they imagine, it doesn't exist. And I agree with them. So before we come to speak about Hashem, about God, we have to prepare ourselves in a sense, what do we mean when we say God? If we should perceive Hashem as an entity in one place, and the world and us in this place, and Hashem stands there and hovers over them, over us, and watches every one of our activities, this is folly, this is stupid. It doesn't exist. This is not what we mean by Hashem. We always point out in the talks that we have, it is a primary question that every intelligent person asks. This is the primary human intelligence. Where does the world come from? A human being has an intellect, and everything that he observes has to make sense in his intellect. And if it doesn't make sense in his intellect, he can't relate to it. That's what a human being is. So he asks, what is the world? And we give him an answer. Hey, Hashem created it. What is the answer? If I have a question, where does the world come from? Say, Hashem created it, so I have a question. I transfer the question to Hashem. So who created Hashem? Where does Hashem come from? In other words, if we have an answer to a question like this, the answer has to make sense. It's not just transferring the question to a different location, different address. However, the answer really, when we say Hashem created it, the answer really is a satisfactory answer. In what way? If we understand the question, first of all, properly, what makes a person ask where the world comes from? After all, he didn't exist before the world existed. If something comes, say, this was brought to me. Oh, who brought it? It wasn't he before. But a human being didn't exist prior to the existence of the world. So what makes him ask where the world is coming from?
Because he want to know his purpose, for what all this world, why it was created, how we should.
Once you understand that it was created, then you ask, what is the purpose of the creation? Why did Hashem create it? But the initial question, what is the world? What makes a person ask that question? He was born into it. It was always there as far as he's concerned. What makes him ask the question? The reason he asks this question is because in his intellectual perception of the world, even though the world, as far as he's concerned, was always there, his experience, but it goes beyond his experience. He doesn't relate to things by his experience, he relates to things by his intellectual perception. And his intellect tells him that this is a finite entity. And a finite entity has to have an infinite source. Because the primary existence is infinite. If it's a finite entity, It has a definition. It has limits. It is not self-sustaining. It cannot be self-made, like we learned in the end of the previous Hamshach. So therefore, he sees right away in the world that this is not, even though it preceded me, but it's not really something that is self-existent. It's not an existence of that level that it's self-sustaining. Although it is very great and all the variety and all that. Therefore he asks, where does that come from? And his answer is that Hashem made it. Means that there is an existence that is not worldly, that does not have a limit. That is a true existence that is self-made, self-sustaining. It's true in itself. The world is not true in itself. Nothing in the world is imperative. Imperative means is a must be. Therefore, it has to have come into being. This is something which, without even going into the philosophy, this is something which every human being in his primary intelligence recognizes. This is a primary cognizance of human intellect. Then afterwards he comes and defines it and says, why do I see it this way? But the fact that every person sees the world as something that needs to have been made is primary. And therefore when he gives him an answer that Hashem made it, what does it mean? That Hashem is not of that quality. It does not have a limit. It is not something that can be seen and defined. It doesn't have this like the circumscription, the limits, its boundaries. If it doesn't have a boundary, so how do you give it a name? What does a name mean? A name is something that distinguishes one thing from another. Something that has no distinction, has no boundaries. How do you have a name? Therefore, when we say names, Havayahu Elikim, this is Hashem's name, we don't mean a name for Hashem. We mean a name for some aspect of Hashem's activity, Hashem's expression, revelation, action. It's not a name to Hashem himself. Because if we thought that we can give a name to Hashem, then if you have a God, that doesn't make sense. Then we have the same question about God, about that we have about the world. Okay, this is clear. So therefore,
If I ask one question on the background to this mimer, the first time I learned this mimer, someone told me that the reason it's called Veidaita Moscow is because Rabbi Rashab said it in Moscow at a time there was some sort of decree pending, and he said the mimer, and it was like Veidaita Moscow. He made Moscow to know that there's a God, and something got annulled. Is the story correct?
yeah, well, I know there is a history to this mind, but I don't remember it offhand. I know the Rabbeim always said Maimorim at the right time but I said this was a time that things were brewing already. The communists and all that. It was before the communist era, but a lot of abikusis, a lot of all kinds of different things. So this is what the Rebbe is asking. L'choyre in ze muvon, eiche heim kul achad. How are they all one thing? Havaya and Elikim. Dehine Yodua, it is known, the Havaya hu mokir hagilui. That Havaya, as we said, that when we say a name, we mean to refer to some kind of activity coming from Hashem. And we describe these activities with the names that appropriately define and describe the activity. Havaya is a name that we give to Mokir Hagilui, to the source of revelation. The word Havaya, even though it's Hashem's name and has the Oisius Yudke Vovke, but there is an innate meaning to the word. It means existence, to be, like Hoiva. Now, Hashem also exists. So what is Havaya? And we say that Havaya, this is the Mokir of existence. And the explanation is that Hashem's existence and the existence that we talk about that is referred to by Havaya are two different, completely different concepts of existence. There is existence that, no matter how true and profound it is an existence that comes into being. Then there is an existence that does not come into being, does not have to come into being.
Can I repeat that?
Excuse me?
Can I repeat that? Can you repeat that? What you say?
And there is existence in our terminology. When we say something exists, we mean something was brought into being, something was made to be. But then there is an existence that is not something that came into being. Havaya is the source of existence, that which we properly call existence. What we call existence means something that comes into being, that we can relate to as existence. Hashem's own existence is not something that we can call existence. Because there is nothing, there is not an existence that came into being. It is, being and not being is the same thing, is identical. Havaya means something that comes, it's the source of existence. And this is why he said that this is Mokir HaGilui, the source of Gilui. Gilui means Hashem's presence, Hashem's existence is not an existence that we can refer to as a presence. This is entirely Hashem himself. And he exists, so to speak, quote unquote, even though there's absolutely no expression, no gilui, no identification from it. Havaya, this refers to an existence that we can call existence. That's what's called Mokir HaGilui, the source of all revelation, because that's what the source of existence is. Where Hashem reveals, and that revelation is an existent thing. Because it could be revealed, it could not be revealed. Therefore we call it existent. Havaya. Okay.
We know that they are the Shita, the simple map. We know that there are two steps before Havaya. Simpson and Rishon, Sof, Asmus, HaYom and Havaya.
Well, let's. That's not necessary. Just to understand, Yeah, and understand what we're saying here. All of these things are going to be taken into that's just to understand what we mean by the words Havayahu Moker Hagil. What does Moker Hagil mean? Prior to Gilui, there is Hashem Himself. But that's not an existence. Therefore, it's not called Havaya. Havaya is Moker Hagil. V'hu b'chinas midas horachami. This union of Gilui, of Havaya, the Moker Hagilui, is the midas horachami. When we say Moker Hagilui, there are two types of Giluyim, two types of expressions. There's an expression that has a specific purpose to accomplish. And that expression has a definitive view. In other words, a pathway, and it's defined exactly what it is to do and where it's going. That does not provide for the general concept of existence. Take, for instance, in our limited experience. A table is only a table. It's not a chair. And we say, what is this? We don't say, oh, this is existing. We say, this is a table. But the space that's in this room where we put this table, in this space we can put anything. Put a table, a chair, anything else. This is just providing for existence. I mean, we have the room. What do we have? I cannot tell what. You can use it for whatever you want. But it exists. It's undefined. This is the concept of Havaya. Havaya provides for presence. What presence? Could be all kinds of different things come from it. And this is why this is called Midas Horachamim. What is Midas Horachamim? Midas Horachamim means it's an open field. It's not limited. It provides for anything.
Why is Rachamim specifically?
It's a little involved and a little profound, and I'll hold it off, okay? I won't remain in that. But Midas Horachim, in contrast to Midas Hagvura, which is very precisely defined, and there's always, a contrast between this and that. Midas Horachim does not distinguish between things in such a clear way. It provides for anything. There is Chesed, which is even more open than Rachamim. Why it's called Rachamim, we'll have to discuss another time. Like in our world, even in our world and physical world, we have we have a whole constellation, a whole creation. We have Earth, Moon, Sun, stars, planets. And on the Earth we have infinite varieties and all that. All that, each one of these things has its own source and its own presence. But above and beyond its own presence, there is this infinite provision that anything can exist. Anything can be. Infinite variety, infinite presence, infinite number of stars. This is representative of Midas Orachim. That things are not limited to be just what I'm trying to accomplish, but an open field. But then that, things begin to form.
We have Hashem through the name of HaYom is mercy.
I'm sorry?
It's mean that Hashem through the name of HaYom is the Vodah of mercy.
Right, it's mercy. V'hainu, shehu, what it means to say, the Zohar said that this Midas Orachim, Hainu shehu bechinas gilui, that Havaya is a type of gilui, bechinas chesed v'racham, a gilui that is in a manner of chesed and rachamim. And he said, I don't want to go into chesed and rachamim distinctly right now. Bli shum habola klal, that's the important thing. Without any hagbol. Huh?
Now it's difficult. We know that the name of HaYom has Gemura. Has the Yod, the Chai. The Chai is represented the Gemura. And the name of HaYom why is without Akvala, limitation.
So it's, all the limitations in Havaya, in Yud, K, Vav, K, all of those limitations do not limit what actually comes through. The only limit is that it becomes a presence. Like I said before, a presence in contrast to that which is not a presence. Like, this is God's godly, not a Metzias. It provides for a Metzias. Then you can give. Rishum Hagbola Klal, without any Hagbola. The whole Hagbola, because any Hagbola, who Mishem Elikim, Hagbola is from the Shem Elikim. Kmeishi Yizboyer. As will be explained. Avol Shem Havaya, but Shem Havaya hu gilui bebchinas bli gvul klal. Shem Havaya, this is a gilui in a bli gvul manner. Total bli gvul. Perhaps we can focus in a little bit in the Indian from in Rachmim and Chesed, in the expression of the word Gilui b'bchinas bli gvul. The mashal that we can have to express Chesed versus Rachamim. In our little world, in our little experience, let us say someone is opening up his warehouse, his wealth, and he is making it available to everybody. There are two ways that this can happen. One is he has his warehouse, and in the warehouse he makes an opening, makes a window. He stands in front of the window, and people come to the window, and whatever they ask, he gives them. Unlimited. There's another way. The other way is he takes the wall off. People come in, and whatever flows out of the walls, they get. What's the difference? The difference is, in both instances, he doesn't restrain what he's given. The difference is, though, that when you get it through a window, you know that you've gotten it from someplace. There's a source, and there's a giver and a recipient. You don't become part of the giver. You come to the window and you get. So there's a source, you recognize it as a source, and you're receiving it. When you remove all walls, you just open up the treasury, and it's not hidden at all, then you're not even aware that you're getting it from someplace. You're just there in the source. The union for Shem Havaya is not opening up the source. It's called a gilui b'pchinas bli gvul. It's a gilui. It's bli gvul. It's granting full revelation, but it's a gilui, which means that after all that, there is still a recognition that it's a gilui. It's something that's being given, something that has a source. It's not without a source, without a relationship between the mashpia and the makabel. This is the union from Shem Havaya. This is why Shem Havaya has Yud, K, Vav, K, because it comes in that form that you can receive it. And you know that there's a source, and then it's given. This is in effect, I'm jumping the gun a little bit, this is in effect the difference between Kedusha and Klipa. Kedusha always wants, there could be a gili bli gvul, but I want to know and to relate to the source where it's coming from. Klipa is not interested in the source where it's coming from. It's interested in what I'm getting. And wants to go right there into the source itself and take it. So when the Klipa talk about Hashem, they talk about Hashem that they get the power of Hashem. He relates directly to Hashem. I have Hashem with me. Not receiving it. There's no avoider involved. There's no kind of relationship. Here's everything is God. Sometimes you can hear people talk about God like the mamish tzaddikim, but there's mamish klipa. Because they're interested in the bli gvul without the gilui. This is Havaya. Havaya is bli gvul, but it's a gili b'chinas bli gvul. The word gili means that you have the sense that it comes from someplace. It's being revealed.
Kili also has to be shaykh to the keli, right?
Therefore, Atchila Havaya doesn't have a keli. But therefore, then afterwards, it can be put in the keli through Shem Elokim. Because it's a gil. The Shem Elokim, and then the Shem Elokim, who bechinas midas hadin ve'hatzimtzum. This is the aspect of the midah of din and tzimtzum. Din means judgment. Judgment means what am I trying to accomplish? Like, for instance, taking our mashal of the window, of the open window. Someone comes to the window and he asks for help. I need whatever, I need such and such. Give me. So mitzad midas harachamim, or mitzad midas hachesed. Chesed is in totally open. Mitzad midas harachamim. You would ask, how much do you need? How much do you want? That midas adin, what do you need? What are you trying to do with it? And then it's being judged according to the exact purpose for which you're trying to do with it. That's called din and tzimtzum. It's also given, but it's very precisely given for the purpose that you're trying to accomplish. So therefore, in midas hadin, in Elokim, there's already a definition, precise definition, what is being done. Not just gilui. Mizur Rachamim, as we said, is also gilui, which means it's not just taking away the boundaries, but it's still applicable. Means atzimtzum, this is really gvul. Ativ atzimtzum letzamtzim ulahalim as hagilu yoyer. To be metzamtzim, to contract, to limit. And in order to limit, you have to be malim. You have to conceal the gilu yoyer. And if the gilu yoyer is concealed, means that there is no bli gvul. And what comes through that is a specifically defined purpose. That's in midas hadin. Umizeh horibu hischalkus. And from this, the tzimtzum and midas hadin, this is where the ribu hischalkus comes from. The multitude of his chalkus, of subdivisions. There are different types of activities, different types of midas and so forth. But mitzad Shem Elokim, mitzad Shem Havaya, mitzad bli gvul, there's no his chalkus. V'lochein b'shem Elokim ksiv loshen rabim. This is why in Shem Elokim it is written loshen rabim in plural form. K'meisha kosov, as the pasuk says, Elokim kedoshim. Loshen rabim, kedoshim, holy ones. Lihayois, that is because sheme'atzim tzum v'hahelem, that from this tzimtzum and helem bo beribu hischalkus. It comes out beribu hischalkus in many different Ribu Yitzchak in many different ways. In other words, if using our mashal, if someone approaches the window and he says, I need to build a house and I need to furnish it, and I need to make a table and chairs and a refrigerator. Each one of these things is a separate inyan. That Shem Havaya, there are no hischalkus. Because it makes no difference. It doesn't present the inyan what is being asked for, what is being needed or used. Excuse me? It's not even klal prat, because in klal prat means I have to set up my home. That's a klal. But here he says, forgive me. It doesn't have to be even defined. No hischalkus. This is why Mitzvah Hashem Elokim there is Lashon Rabbi, that he provides for this, he provides for this, he provides for this. Mitzvah Hashem Havaya, there's no Lashon Rabbi. Loshin HaKabbalah, using Kabbalah terminology, Shem Havaya hu Moker HaOiros, Shem Elokim Moker HaKelim. Shem Havaya is the source of the Oiros, of the Spheros, and Shem Elokim is the source of the Kelim of the Spheros. This union of Oiros and Kelim we'll talk about it as we learn and so forth, but I just want to define it first in general. Oiros and Kelim. At our level, so we should understand the concept of Oiros and Kelim. In order for a person to do anything, he has to have the means by which to do it. If he wants to walk from place to place, he has to have healthy feet. He has to be able to walk. Whatever he has to do, he has to have the means to do it. But over and above those means by which he's going to do it, he has to have the spirit to do it with. The chayes. Legs don't walk because they're so built that they can walk. Legs walk because they have life in them, because they have chayes. And if a person has perfectly healthy legs, but he doesn't have the spirit, he won't be able to move. All of a sudden, everything is heavy. These oir, this is called oir, the oir hanefesh, the chayes. Sometimes a person can be physically exhausted, But he doesn't. But spiritually, he doesn't feel tired because he's elated. He's inspired. The highest. There is at different levels. There are many levels of this highest. There's an overall highest that is excited. He has highest in life in general. Then there's a highest in a particular activity. He wants to accomplish this. And there is highest even beyond want to accomplish it. Just to walk from place to place also needs its own highest. It goes down to the lowest level of activity. Like for instance, it comes to learning. There's hardly anyone who would say, I don't want to know what it says here. I really want to know. But not everybody says, I want to work and get to know it. For that you need special chayas. To want to work on it and to know it. So there is a chayas in every activity at the lowest level. This is called oiris. And then there's overlord, there's oiris makifim, and there is pnimi. Oiris bikelim, these are the oiris that actually activate the feet, activate the hand, activate the mouth, activate the brain. Now, even though that these are all different level of oiris, but we can readily understand and see that the feet and the hands are two separate entities, completely. They're defined differently, designed differently, they're complete different structure. And therefore, the koyach that's mislabish in the foot, that has the koyach that can activate the foot, is different than the koyach that's mislabish in the hand, that activates the hand. Even though they're different, still there's a great similarity between them. There's the spirit, the inspiration, there's a big similarity between them. Between that which activates the feet and that which activates the hands. So the oiris, in other words, all the, so to speak, all the spirit, all the oiris have a commonality, have a common relationship between them, and a common source, a common relationship to their source. Like I said before, that in order to walk from place to place, you have to have the spirit that activates your feet. But this also relates to the spirit that makes you want to go there. And that also related to the spirit that makes you want to accomplish anything, to wake up in the morning. It's all connected. The highest and the lowest are all connected.
All this is the Shemaraye?
What?
All these that you say now, this is the Shemaraye? Or the...
Okay, so this is what you say. That Shem Havaya is the mokir of Oiris. There are all kinds of Oiris that's mislabish in the Kelim. But all Oiris relate back to the always related to the source. Just like the sunshine that enters this window is the same light that's outside. Even though here it is very limited and defined. But spiritually, in the nefesh, we can see how they're really different oiris, and yet they're all related. That's what Shem Havaya is mokir ha'oiris. Shem Elokim mokir ha'kelim. V'ha'oir hu poshut. The oir is poshut. Bli shum hischalkus klal ubli gvul. The oir is poshut. Poshut means undefined. without any subdivisions. You cannot say that there is the oir, like we said in the oil for walking and the oil for talking and the oil for moving. It's all related to the same spirit. Oblique gvul, without limit.
Obviously, the Shemavai is mocker for oirois, the plural. And from another side, we said the or it's not lishum mit chalkus.
Right. So why is it plural? Right. This is one of the more difficult aspects in Exodus to understand. What is the difference? Like we said before, there is a difference between the koyach and nefesh as mislabish in your foot, and the koyach and nefesh as mislabish in your hand. There is something happens. The oil becomes more something or more defined, even though in essence there is no distinction. There are very broad ways, different opinions in how to define the difference between the oiris. There are opinions that say that the oiris are actually identical. All oiris, oil that's in chesed, oil in gvura, and klei chesed, is identical oil. And the difference is only in what kind of keli it's received. And there is the opinion that says that no, that the oils are not, that there is, in the oil itself there is a distinction. There's the aspect of oil of this koyach and this koyach. But surely, in terms of when the oil is mislabish and the keli, there's a big difference between this oil and this oil. Like in the koyach HaNefesh. Koyach HaNefesh is also one entity, and the Chayas HaNefesh is one. Still, the Chayas is divides itself into 613, literally, different koyches, different oiles. And they're mislabish in the different parts of the human body. And they function at the level of that aver, of that part. They're very different. And yet, they're all oil and they're all connected to their source. Like we said before, that the inspiration to walk, inspiration to move your hand, there's a big similarity between them. This is what he says over here. Oiru poshu b'lishum hischalkus klal. In essence, the oil is betara hischalkus. B'li gvul. It doesn't have a limit. And he explains this term of b'li gvul. The oil hu me'ein hamoir. Because oil, the whole concept of oil is that it is representative of the moir. It's called me'ein hamoir. It is representative of the moir. Moir means the source of the light, the luminary. We'll have to discuss it more, but I just want to give you one approach, one perspective on this. A human being is able to like we said before, to do all kinds of different things. He has to walk, run, jump. He can, with his hand, he can do all kinds of different things. He can speak, he can see, he can hear. And then he has higher koiches, seichel and midas. All of these things he's able to do. And each one of these things is a different activity. He walks with his feet, he writes with his hands, he speaks with his mouth, he sees with his eyes. Very different activity. So you say, why is he able to walk? Because he has feet. Why is he able to talk? Because he has a mouth. This is true at some level. But then, there's another level of truth. And it is entirely true to say that the reason he is able to walk is because he's a human being. He's able to talk because he's a human being. He's able to write because he's a human being. Able to see because he's a human being. Even though it's divided in different parts, but they're all representative of one, of the source of it all, of the essence. And in fact, it is true to say, as I said, he's able to think and to understand. He has seichel and midas. And he's able to walk. It's all one and the same thing. Because it's actually sourced in the same essence. Because oir is me'in ha-moir. Oir is representative of the moir. A human being cannot do anything that is not human. Even though it can be on a much lower level than that which is really representative of a human being, that is uniquely human. And this is what we say, that the oirs are bligvul, are not limited in themselves. Because it represents the essence. Ma'en ha-moir. And just as the moir is bligvul, okay, he says in parentheses, Ma'en ha-moir, lihiyoisei dovek b'ha-moir, because it's connected to the moir. Uki odua me'amoshel de'ir v'ziv ha-shemesh. This we know from the moshel of the oir v'ziv ha-shemesh, and the light of the sun. The light of the sun extends itself millions of miles away from the sun, but it is totally representative of the sun. And it is continuously connected, to the sun. It is representative of the sun. And if you dissociate it from the sun, it's no longer the same way.
So if this,
Excuse me?
if this, you say in the last word.
If you dissociate, if you separate it from the sun, it's not the same thing anymore.
It disappears.
It disappears. This we have to talk about, to understand exactly. Mishim, next time we'll discuss this. Okay?
And the same way the Rebbe, put the word ma'in from the type. If you say the or is of the ma'or, which is different, you put ma'in or not put ma'in. Understand? In the word.
No, it's not from the moyer. The moyer is separate, and the oil is separate. The moyer does not come with the oil. The moyer stays.
What is in between the or and the ma'or here?
No, no.
Okay.
The moyer is in its place, like the sun is in its place. The sun doesn't come down here. The sun remains there. What comes from the sun? The oil of the sun. But the oil is a representative.
It's a type of revelation.
It's a type. Okay, this is it for today.